Okay, so the cover you're looking at right now probably looks really confusing and maybe pretty hard to understand why all these images are together. So the purpose of this video is to show you how the whole thing's linked. What you're seeing at the top, the different versions of slavery, and down the bottom is the celebration of it. That's the quick way of explaining what that is. So now I'm going to launch into the explanation of how these are all linked and the mental illness. Sorry to say this, well, not so much sorry, because I can imagine I'm going to get a lot of backlash for the way I've phrased it, because it's too confronting for people to see it that way, because it means that you, if you are listening to this, that you're actually part of the mental illness. And if you have some kind of capacity to be able to look into that which is uncomfortable, perhaps you'll get some value out of it. If you're closed to anything that confronts, things that you attach to, then this is not the video for you. So I encourage you to just click off here. Okay, so here we go. We're going to unravel this and what it all means. Okay, so here we go again. Lots of material I'm using from Larkin Rose because he's right on point. So he's going to read a excerpt out of the diary of a man who used to be, or was raised in slavery, like the classic slavery, the whipped for their labor, housed, all that sort of stuff. Quoting something from his, also because it's about his journey from that full program state of being born into a world where that's all he's known and not knowing anything else, and how he was capable by himself with no influence from anyone else, which is quite remarkable, because people today are just as enslaved psychologically, if the only difference is that their bodies aren't to the same level. They're still enslaved, but not to the same level, and they're incapable of doing it. So that's what this is about. This is about showing you the actual link between mental and physical slavery, and that just the difference is there's different versions of the manifestation in the physical world, but the mental is exactly the same. So he's going to read a quote, and then I'm going to start tying it all together for you.
I have been frequently asked when a slave if I had a kind master. This is Frederick Douglass speaking. And do not remember ever to have given a negative answer. Nor did I, in pursuing this course, consider myself as uttering what was absolutely false. For I always measured the kindness of my master by the standard of kindness set up among slaveholders around us.
That's really important. Most people will always compare themselves to what's around them. That is a programmed state of mind. They don't look at things objectively, they look at them comparatively, because that's how they've been programmed. So that's a critical piece right there.
So there was nothing objective. There was no saying, this is slavery, this is evil, duh. What do you mean? Why would you even ask me that? It's like, well, I guess this is how this is. And compared to the other nasty people around, I guess the nasty person who abuses and owns me and treats me like property and views me as property, I guess he's okay, so I'll say nice things about him. And this is somebody who outgrew that and figured out why that was wrong. Oh, man. Trying to imagine thinking about it. Moreover, slaves are like other people and imbibe prejudices quite common to others. They think their own better than that of others. Many, under the influence of this prejudice, think their own masters are better than the masters of other slaves. And this too, in some cases, when the very reverse is true.
So think about that. Even if it's not true that you are having a better time of it than your other fellow slaves, sometimes it turns out that you will make sure that you believe you are doing better than other slaves. And very soon we're going to draw the link. He's going to do it beautifully. So just hang on.
What does that sound like to you? I'll give you a hint. Drive around and watch someone waving the American flag. America #1! Yeah, but America isn't you. You're not waving the flag of you. You're waving a flag that represents the republic that abuses you and robs you and controls you and defrauds you and limits you and restricts you and bosses you around. And yet, if you're the average American, you proudly tell the world how your abuser and enslaver and theft is the best, and you wave his flag. I have been free.
Whoops, that wasn't meant to happen. So something quite critical there for you to really sit with. This is all the quiet things are being said out loud here. The things that you know deep in your gut about the injustices you need to endure on a daily basis. They're always there. They're always present. That's why you have those sick feelings, those uncertain feelings. There's just this thing that hangs over you where you know you're not free on some level, but your ego needs to come up with a story to say that that's the best there is. So just deal with it. You hear that all the time. How many times do you hear people say, "Well, just deal with it"? There's something defective about you if you can't actually deal with being in a system where you're enslaved. And very few people are going to understand how this actually lives in their life because they've got a lot of comforts. What they don't understand is those comforts are part of how your slavery works. Because when you get attached to those comforts, that's when you're afraid to give them up. And that's when you'll do anything that you're told to do, even if it means more rape and pillage, right? You'll give that up just so as long as you believe you'll still be able to keep something of it. Right? Slavery means that you don't have full control over what your body produces and how you utilize that. That's pretty much slavery. Just because you're not being whipped doesn't mean you have full control over what it is you produce and how you make use of your body. And very few people understand that. Now we're going to look at the actual lived expression of that. And I want you to now think about this. Imagine if there was plantation owners, right, back in the 1800s, who now decided to have a competition amongst their chattel slaves and find the most, the most dirty ones and have them compete with ones from other plantations, who their most prominent, fittest ones are, and then see who comes out on top. And then, that's a celebration for the actual slave plantation owner because their slaves are better than the other ones. I want you to start thinking about that now because what I'm about to show you is the modern day version of that. So hang on to your hats. I can imagine I'm going to be pretty much offending a lot of people right now. So let's just see what happens. Okay, let's see if anyone can recognize what this is. Here we go. I've just got to find the start button.
One of the traditional powerhouses of Olympic competition, Anna Meares carries the flag. The four-time world champion, two-time Olympic champion. And what a moment for Anna. The fourth biggest delegation, John Coates from the AOC, welcoming his team. 425 athletes, one of the biggest teams. Traditionally, of course, strong in swimming, so many of the swimmers won't be here. Anna Meares said to her fellow athletes, she could have retired after London, but Rio offered me a chance to not just be great, but to be greater again.
So there you have it, the best stock that they can find to do what? To compete for their plantation owner. Still not making the link? Well, let's have a look at what each one of these individuals lives on one level or another, whether they directly live it or they witness it and do nothing about it. And that's been throughout their day and life, not so much day, but it's been present in their lives and it's always there. Let's take a look at what that is, shall we? And what they don't say out loud, what they say quietly, because they've come to accept it on a way that they've made peace with it, which requires them to do a lot of mental gymnastics. Here we go. This is daily experiences in some places. Sometimes it happens, a few times a year. Over the last 2 years, it happened a lot. So this is have a look at what actually life is like when you go up against your slave plantation owner. What happens?
He just hit that girl.
Has anyone figured out what the role of the police is yet? If you think about it from the term of a slave plantation owner, don't they need enforcers? Don't they need overseers to make sure that the chattel are held in line? Here it is right there. It's just a bigger, expanded version. Very few people understand it that way. That's their job. And where do they get them from? They get them from amongst the slaves. Like, that's the best part. Not many people understand that. Like, if you're going to run your own slave plantation, if you want to be very efficient, you're not going to get the enforcers from your own ranks because you're too good for that. So you need to get them from the ranks of the people. And that's what the police are. They're just one of the people, right? And they're willing to do that. These are one of the people willing to actually work for their masters against the very people they come from. You want to talk about mental illness? It's right there in your face. Let's watch some more.
To make one thing clear about.
So just to stay with that little girl, right? That's every single individual who's ever grown up in a system where they're a slave. That's the inner child that cries for the agony of not understanding why they're forced to endure a life where they're not free. This is just a physical manifestation of it, where you can't hide from it. But that happens every day inside the individual, no matter who you are. On some level, anytime you live the lie where there's some people who get to be above you and get to dictate how and what you do and how you go about your life, that is slavery. It's just as simple as that. And if you don't want to see it, that's fine. That's like totally fine. This is not for you. This is for people who are willing to see the truth as it is and are willing to face it. And then maybe they'll want to do something about it. That's what this is for. So I'm going to come back into Larkin and just get him to give some more detail. All right, let's listen to more what Larkin's got to say. He's going to give it some more depth. So hopefully this will be a little bit clearer now.
I mean, I can read his words and know that, yeah, that guy actually lived a lot of his life as a slave. And I can see parallels today. But the parallels today, you know, the situation we're in today is a whole lot less openly violent and horrible suffering, and, you know, you're not getting whipped to death and on the brink of starvation and any of that. We are way more prosperous while being robbed by parasitical thieves and tyrants. So I'm not nearly and would never compare the severity of the situation. But if you can't recognize the similarity of the psychology involved, then you're just not looking very hard. And there's a lot of things that Frederick Douglass talks about that show that to a disturbing level. But the fact that somebody can abuse a bunch of people or claim to own them, and because of how our weird brains work, if they're indoctrinated into thinking, well, this is how it is and we're obligated to obey, you'll still see people making excuses for their own abusers and literally bragging that their abusers are the best abusers around.
So what do you think happens when there's sports competitions? What do you think that's about? Why do people cheer under that flag? Really think into that, right? That's the manifestation of cheering for your plantation owner without realizing you're doing it. Because you're not representing yourself. You're representing an idea. Based on what? A system that you live under that makes you more superior than the other system that other people live under. Like, it's so sick if you really understand what's going on here. And it's like you get the best people that you can find, the best slaves, the best well-fed ones, and, the ones who are trained, so they can, glorify their master's plantation and then say our master's plantation is better than the other ones. Like, that's how bent it is. And very few know what they're doing when they're doing that. And then they're laughing at us. That's the thing. They think that's hilarious that we willingly do that to ourselves.
Well, what other country would you rather live in? You've probably heard that response to somebody pointing out, this government in this country, bad things are happening here. Yeah, we're pretty dang prosperous, and we have a certain amount of freedom in certain ways, kind of. It's been dwindling for a long time. But a lot of times when people go, I'm not going to wave the flag and praise this country and call it the land of the free, because it isn't. You need permission of the ruling class to do almost anything. And how do other people respond?
So think about that. Can you drive on the road freely? No, you need to get a license and a registration for your vehicle. What about just live in your house without any harassment? No, you have to get permits if you want to build something. You need to pay your rates. You think about all the things where you are regulated to the hilt, right? There's no freedom whatsoever. But if you pay, you'll be allowed under their conditions. Have a proper think about how that's ever been free. But because people weren't deeply uncomfortable, they didn't look into it to that level. And here's your opportunity to start understanding that if you don't actually really look at this properly, you are just going to keep more of that suffering going. If you're serious about freedom, it's about understanding what it really means, not the illusion that you're still being sold.
This is the greatest country, and if you don't like it, just get out. And what country is better than this one? Why don't you move to North Korea? It's literally as twisted and insane as somebody saying, yeah, my dad gets drunk and beats me up every other night. And somebody saying, well, if you don't like it, why don't you go to the neighbor whose father is even a worse, more violent drunk? Then see how you like it. What kind of insane response is that? It's the kind of insane response a brain has to manufacture to try to be at peace with an obvious injustice. They have to compare it to something else to not admit to themselves what they are and what's being done to them. Because to admit that and then to keep going along with it would just be unbearable. Like, you have to just confess, I'm a piece of crap and being treated like a piece of crap, and I'm not doing anything about it.
That's the hard truth. How many people have the courage to face it? That no one's been doing anything about the injustice. They've just been allowing it to happen. That is not easy to face. And very few, I don't believe there's very many people are going to be able to handle it. They're going to be just kicking back and just wanting to murder the one who's giving the message. That's what I see happening here. Now, I'm going to go back to that picture that I showed you at the beginning. And now hopefully that's going to make a little more sense. So in the 1800s in America, this is what slavery looked like. This is the modern day version, doesn't matter where you are, right? Look at that. Just mass production here, mass production there. Just doing one job, right? These guys didn't have to look after their own housing. That was done for them. Then they got smart and they went, well, why would we want to do that? Why don't we get them to do it for themselves, right? Then we just take what we want from them and they'll look after everything else, because they've got to deal with the labor of what the illusion of freedom gives you. And that's take care of your own food, housing, all the other trimmings that come with that. And so we don't have to supply that anymore. That's the modern day slave. While we take the fruits of their labor, because we decide how much we're going to keep and what they're allowed to have for themselves. We take for ourselves and we decide how much they're allowed to keep. And then what do we do? How do we glorify the whole thing? Well, we set up these games, right? And then we get them to, be like nationalistic and stuff like that. And so have a look at them all over here. Look, they're cheering for their slave plantation owner. These ones are cheering for theirs. These are for theirs. Over here, look at that. They're cheering for theirs. These guys for theirs, and so forth and so on. These images are from World Cup finals. Here is from the Olympics. So all sport, if you really understand it, all it is, it's teaching you to glorify your slave plantation owner and pay homage to them. Because as an individual, you can't have the other one's experience, but they're doing it in your name. So you're vicariously living through them, right? And so it's like your particular brand of slavery is more superior to someone else's particular brand of slavery. So then you don't feel so bad about the brand of slavery that you need to endure, right? While you ignore every single injustice you go through every single day, because this is the event you're looking forward to that makes it all okay, right? And on top of that, you're learning how to be competitive, right? That's another thing about superior and inferior. That's what competition does. It establishes who's more superior to the other. And so you're just reinforcing your own slavery over and over again, and then you've got the crowds that cheer it. And they somehow think that actually represents them. If their brand of more elite slaves can beat the other plantation owners' brand of elite slaves, right? That's the sickness that we're working through here. While their parents might be doing this for a living, or who knows what they do, just so they can have what we call a better life, right? The massive illusion here, huge. And so these are the things, if we're not willing to face them, we're going to keep repeating them. And so it's one of those things that very few people are willing to look at, because this is a religion. And if you understand what religion means, it actually means to thwart back one's conscious growth, that they grow and expand their self-awareness. That's the point of religion. That's all it really means. It doesn't actually mean worshipping a deity, only that. There's all different forms, and sport's a massive one. So I'm going to finish with Larkin having a few more things to say. Actually, I might just show you our brand of punishment that our enforcers use that happened over the last few years. Actually, I might show that first, yeah. All right, so let's have a look at our, what would you call them? The whipping, I guess the guys who get to give, the ones that get given the whips to keep the other slaves in line. All right, let's have a look at how ours do it. Okay. Have a look at one human being is willing to do to another in order to please their slave master. Have a proper look at what's happening.
Throwing stuff now, and okay, they're shooting. They're now shooting.
Just take a proper look and breathe that in, guys. That's critical to really see it for what it is, not what you're told to believe it is. And how many people cheered this on? How many of the slaves in the slave plantation cheered it on? You understand when I say slave plantation, I'm actually meaning the boundaries of what we call a nation or a country. It's one massive slave plantation. And they cheered that on. They cheered that on for their fellow slaves to go suffer that. That's the extent of the illness. Now I'm just going to finish with Larkin. Yeah.
It would just be unbearable. Like you have to just confess, I'm a piece of crap and being treated like a piece of crap, and I'm not doing anything about it. That is the recognition that Frederick Douglass eventually came to, that this all the way isn't okay. And comparing masters, that's irrelevant. That doesn't stinking matter. I own myself. And I don't know if he ever put it in those words, but you can very obviously see that he came to that conclusion, and he figured out, I'm not this guy's property.
How many people, if you were to ask them, do you own yourself? And there's people who think they're free, right? No, I'm talking about every one of you who are watching this, not just the ones who you think are asleep, can honestly say they own themselves, that they're fully in charge of everything they decide. There's no coercion in their life. There's no fear of any consequence for the choices they make. They're not beholden to anyone. They're not paying tribute to anyone. They're not constantly on the back foot, that they're worried about how they're going to survive. Do you know how many people can honestly say that? Right? So if that's your life, how can you say you own yourself? Right? That's the depth of the truth that needs to be looked at. And then if you understand that and really accept it, What are you willing to do about it?
And for those of us today, it can seem like, why on earth would that take that much time and effort to figure out you don't belong to another human being? Well, if you're surrounded by people who think that slavery is just how things are, and it's legitimate, and even if you complain about, this is horrible and we're suffering and stuff, but oh well, it's legal and stuff, and he bought me fair and square, and if that's the mentality of everyone around you, most people do not have the philosophical awareness and the strength to see objective reality and morality while indoctrinated into that situation.
Now ask yourself this, how many times, even yourself, have you heard others say and you yourself go, it's not fair, but that's just the way life is? Think about how often that's been shared around. That is the actual acceptance of slavery right there, that statement. And you hear it so often.
And again, I would never compare the degree of injustice happening now to like chattel slavery, but the mentality is the same. Millions and millions and hundreds of millions of people working their butts off and being constantly robbed by these political parasites. They have to tell themselves excuses for why this is legitimate and necessary and this is how things have to be. And furthermore, ours is the greatest country. Our abusers are the greatest abusers. Don't you dare talk bad about our abusers. And so if one of their fellow slaves, in the analogy, says, yeah, our abuser is a piece of crap. This is not okay. This is not acceptable. This is not legitimate. This is not moral. Most of the others will respond by hating that person for trying to put in front of them a truth that makes them too uncomfortable.
There you go, guys. That's pretty much what I get coming my way, by the way. People see you as all these things when you say things that they can't deal with. They don't want to face it. If you are one of those few, and a very tiny number, who actually wants to face it and is willing to, and then has the courage to do something about it, real peaceful, right? Just standing for truth. I'm going to show you a resource that you can go to and start learning and then taking action as well. The site's called magnacarta1215.com. A lot of people laugh at this. They think it's a relic, that it only applied to an elite bunch of people called barons, that it was signed under duress. They've got all these things. Do you think that if it was really true, these things, right, that it would be enduring to this day? What people don't understand is that the crooks are not going to let you know what the truth is. They're going to conceal it. And the reason, the more they conceal it, the more you need to look into it. The more lies they make up about it, the more you want to be looking at it. Just a quick rundown. Basically, it's the agreement that allows for the existence of any kind of system of service, because we're all equal, right? So all anyone can ever do is offer a service to another. That's it. They can't do anything else, right? If we're all equal. And that's all ever any kind of system was before. We call government, but before it wasn't called that. Right? That's all it was. And there had to be an agreement in place so they didn't abuse their power, right? Because they're giving the opportunity to make decisions on behalf of other people. And what that says is that the people are in authority over any system that chooses to serve them. That's all that is. It's an agreement that's binding, and it's still binding to this day. And if you think that that's rubbish and that's a relic, then go for it, dismiss it, right? But there might be some people who actually go, you know what, that's actually correct. That's actually how I'd like to live, is that I'm in charge of myself and our system of service is beholden to me and all my community, because we want to live fair and equitably. If they start deciding for us, well, that's slavery, so we can't have that. And so if you don't use the agreement that's there to prove that these people are criminal, who are meant to be acting, for you, then you've got nothing to work with. And so if you understand that basic principle, then you've got something here for you. All right, so there's video resources here you can look at. I'm not even going to go and explain them all. I'm just going to show you, look how many there are, right? Because I don't want to be here forever. You can do all the learning you like. You've got a reading version of that. So I'm just going to bring up the reading. All right, so look at them all the different ones there. I'm only doing it quickly because I've done other videos that showcase this. Okay, so there you have it. Then you want to take some action right now, just simple things. There's a bunch of different letters that explain the correct system that these public servants are meant to be operating from, that they cannot deny. This terrifies the hell out of them. You will not get a reply from this. At best, you'll get some kind of legal response, but they will not rebut any of the things that you say, that you put in this, well, that are in these actual letters, right? And there's different versions to all the critical places, right? You've got the slavery whippers. You know, you've got the ones who make the decisions for the slavery whippers, right? And then you've got the ones who are actually, you know, what we call politicians and actually civil servants, etc. You've got them. You've got when they use orders against you, those order following tools, which is a crime in itself. Child protection, when they take your kids from you. You've got stuff for the judiciary when they do the same. And then you've got to the commissions, right? You've got one specific for Victoria and then one that's generic to all other commissions across the country. Okay, so if you want to take action, the website's here, magnacarta1215.com. Take your time, read it, understand it. It's got as much as you need in here. And then you can argue all you like if you want to. There's places you can go to get answers if you don't understand, because you can always send communications here through this. So that's it. That's all I wanted to give for today. So that's it. Bye.